we have a Texas State Representative and nominee for Texas Railroad Commissioner John Rosenthal. Uh, would you mind introducing yourself? Why you're running for this office? What this office does? And like why you think you're best fit for this office? And yeah, let's start with that.
Okay, perfect. So first, thanks so much for having me on. I am Texas State Representative John Rosenthal. I currently represent District 135 in the Texas House of Representatives, and the district I represent is suburban Northwest Harris County, so Houston area. And I'm also the Democratic nominee for the Texas Railroad Commission, which honestly, it should be called the Texas Oil and Gas Commission because for a generation now, it has had nothing to do with railroads at all. It regulates oil and gas operations in the state of Texas. So drilling, some surface mining, pipelines, chemical waste management, and, stuff like that. The reason believe I'm qualified is I'm actually a career mechanical engineer who worked in the oil and gas industry for 25 plus years. And then I left industry to run for office in 2017, 2018. And so I got elected and was sworn in 2019. So 25 years in the oil and gas industry as a technical professional, and now 4 terms in the Texas House of Representatives. So I know a little bit about how government works and often how it doesn't work. And so that's the case that I'm looking to make to the voters of Texas, that we want to have, reasonable, sane, knowledgeable governance in these important statewide jobs that really is a technocratic kind of position. It's not really, shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I've noticed as I've interviewed other candidates for offices in Texas. I interviewed Clayton Tucker a few weeks ago, about a month. I don't even know, a few months ago. I don't know, sometime in the last few months, and he was telling me that also that he doesn't think that the name of agricultural commissioner is accurate enough to the description of the job there. Also, I was wondering, given how many issues we've seen, or at least I've seen when I've done research for this interview, with the closeness, I would say, proximity between Abbott, Paxton, the Texas GOP establishment, and the oil and gas industry. Maybe that's why they haven't changed the name, because they don't want people to know that that's the thing that would regulate them. So there's like, oh, and the things, because I feel like a lot of people, when they hear the word Texas Railroad Commissioner, they might not automatically treat it as seriously as, because there's so many different offices running for different, and people struggle to keep track of all of them. And when you have something like that, when most people are like, wait, railroad? What are we doing here? Like, so
Yeah, right. Who cares about railroads?
that might be something they prioritize less. It might go more partisan line based on going down the ballot. But I think most people in Texas or just around the country really do care about the oil and gas industry, because again, that's what impacts a lot of the affordability issues and various other things. And that might actually turn people out to vote more based on like actual, like, more nuance. So I was
Yeah,
wondering, do you think
yeah.
that the reason why they haven't changed the name is because of the corruption going on in the state, or was it just haven't gotten around to it?
So I don't know about having got around to it. This agency was originally named in the late 1800s, and its role has changed over the decades and over the last 100 years or so. But numerous attempts have been made over my lifetime, which is quite a long time, right? Numerous attempts have been made to change the name. It can't just be the agency deciding to, because its its name is used in statute in Texas law. It might appear in the Constitution of our state, which is a whole can of worms, because it's so easy to modify the state constitution in Texas that it's now something like 300 pages long. So to change the name of the commission officially would definitely take an act of the legislature, and it might even take a constitutional amendment. And I think, even though it's been tried by members of both parties over the last few decades, I think the will to do it is lacking, partly because people like for it to fly under the radar and not get a lot of attention. Usually the races for these commissioner spots are not very competitive. And maybe that's the reason why. the it's such a powerful spot. I mean, you think about it. Texas oil and gas is the backbone of the Texas economy, but it's also kind of central to the energy infrastructure, both in our state and in the country. Like Texas is the United States leading producer of oil and gas by far, like something like 40% of the entire
Yeah,
country oil and
and
gas
like
comes.
and so, like, would the position you're running for also have, ability to control what situation that leads to what we've seen the last several years, where we've seen the grid go down, like, almost every year for, like, several years now?
Right.
Would that's something that this position would have oversight over? Is that correct?
At least part of that equation for sure. So the railroad commission should be called the oil and gas commission because it's oil and gas. When our state's energy grid went down in the massive cascade failure in 2021, when we had Winter Storm Uri and people froze to death in their own homes, I mean, it was a very serious situation. One of the core issues, the heart of that matter was natural gas delivery. And so even though Texas leads the nation in wind energy production, half of the electricity that we generate in the state of Texas is generated using gas fired turbines. And so when natural gas freezes off, you have starved the generator of their fuel. And once that happens, the lights go out into Texas. So I can't, it's funny that you asked this question because right after that winter storm, the legislature was in session at the time, and I came in and I was like, hey, I know it's a shocker, but the mechanical engineer in the House and the subject matter expert spent the break while everyone is frozen out. We can't even get back to Austin. I spent the break doing research, and I know it's a surprise. I have spreadsheets and solutions for you all. And they refused to act on the natural gas part of the equation. And that actually, I was so frustrated and angry with the powers that be in the Texas House that that's when I started thinking about running for this job because they weren't going to address it. And I walked away from that conversation thinking, I'm coming back to do something about this. And so that's why I'm running now. I want to come back and do something about a root cause that led to so many people to die in this state.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly a it's I think that most people around the country, when they keep hearing this, they're like, "Why does this keep happening? Why hasn't the legislature done something more about it?" And usually the answer usually is, most cases regardless of state, um, especially when it's led by GOP, um, usually there's something having to do with someone's friend or someone's brother or something like that, some corruption,
Friend, someone's brother, someone's campaign cash. So
donors, all that stuff. That's like that's
the
but
legislature refused to act on the natural gas part after Winter Storm Uri. The CEO of a natural gas provider, Energy Partners, I think they're called, gave the governor of the state $1 million campaign contribution. So
wow. Well,
that might answer the question about why we didn't address the natural gas problem. But the thing that people say to me is, why does your energy grid go down so often in Texas? We thought you guys were like making all the energy. You claim to be an energy powerhouse in the world and yet can't even keep your own lights on. It's kind of embarrassing for us, I think.
I think that, like, I think that it's really hard to see, as someone who I was born in Texas, raised mostly in New York. I was there for, like, 9 months, so I wasn't there for that long, so I barely remember it, but it was great to be back, a few weeks ago now, for the Dream for America conference, but, it's certainly embarrassing. Like, I think that a lot of people, like, whenever I tell people, like, "Oh, yeah, I was born in Texas," they're like, "Oh." And, like, I don't think that has to be the reaction, because I did a piece about this, like, about a few days ago, where I talked about, like, this is the state of LBJ, Barbara Jordan, Sam Rayburn, like, this is the state of, like, real amazing people that have done amazing things, and now, unfortunately, due to corruption, due to incompetency, we have people like Texas is known for people like Ted Cruz, Ken Paxton, Abbott, Dan Patrick, all these
Yeah.
folks, and so it's like people see it as that, and they see it as like this red state that keeps saying, "Oh, we're gonna flip," but then it doesn't. And then I think this year it might act. there's a very good chance it flips because I think that I've said this with Clayton Tucker, and I've said this to Vicky Goodwin when I've interviewed them. The Republicans are not sending their best candidates.
No, they're not.
The thing is, like, they like I know at least like I know your race, and I know Clayton's race. The incumbents both got primaried out
Yeah.
by more extreme candidates. And I wanted to specifically talk about your specific candidate. So this is can you please explain to me who this Beau French guy is and what exactly happened? Because I know that he had a scandal that led to him getting pushback, and now he's the nominee of a statewide office somehow. So explain what happened and how we got here.
Yeah, this is crazy. So, if you've heard of, for the people who have heard of Ted Cruz and Ken Paxton, like this guy is arguably worse. This was
Oh,
the chairman of the Republican Party for Tarrant County, and Tarrant County is basically the Fort Worth area. And so, for the last couple of years, that's been his role. He's a bold extremist and bigot. He There was some scandal. Folks actually might remember he made a little blip on network news last spring, when he posted a poll. Now, this is the chairman of a large, population
big
county
in Texas, yeah,
party, right? Fort Worth,
yeah.
chairman of the Fort Worth Republican Party, posts an online poll asking who's a bigger threat to America, and the only two options were Jews or Muslims, and
Okay.
which which is crazy. It presents, kind of a sweet opportunity for me because, I'm a Jewish mechanical engineer. And I would love to send the guy home in November, right, and win the statewide race. Uh,
Yes, but
but even for Republicans in Texas, that was too much, and they were disavowing him. And Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called for his resignation. Of course, he didn't step down until he decided to run for a statewide office. And what's even wilder about this is he doesn't really have industry experience. So his
so
family owned an oil company, but he never worked in the field, and his degree isn't aligned with this. He has no operational experience at all. So he's just running on a So remember that this is an agency that regulates pipelines and gives out drilling permits and stuff like that. His platform is he wants to deport 100 million people, so a third of the population of the country.
wow,
He
okay.
wants to denaturalize all the Muslims and deport them. He wants to halt the quote unquote Muslim invasion of Texas, which is the craziest thing I ever heard. But even if that was your goal, how are you going to do that by regulating pipelines? I just trying to figure out where the guy is coming from. But
This
it's the
guy,
wildest thing
he,
ever.
the thing is, when someone says like worse than Ken Paxton or Ted Cruz, like one has to be like, how? And then you explain. I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. But like, so he went from being called by the top people in the like top leadership in the GOP that lead the state, you need to go. He did not only not go, he only left his office leading a major county to running for a statewide office, successfully primaried the incumbent.
Right.
Um, well, I'm assuming brought this up. Um, and then voters, I guess, voted for him in the GOP primary. Um, and then I guess then all the state leaders then endorsed the guy they just said that should leave because he said this horrendous thing a year ago.
Right. So wild. So what happened was I was unopposed on the Democrat side. Uh, for whatever reason, Democrats either weren't interested or thought I was a good candidate for this job. I like to think that. On the Republican side, they had a five-way primary for this job. And so they ended up going to a runoff because nobody got more than 50% of the vote. And so what's interesting is during the final days of the runoff between the incumbent and this challenger from Tarrant County, the Governor Greg Abbott got on stage and said, Beau French doesn't know anything about oil and gas, and he would be a disaster for the Texas miracle. So we're running that film as a political advertisement, but it's the hypocrisy to say that on stage and then turn around just a few days later and endorse the guy just because he's a Republican. He clearly is not good for our industry. He doesn't know. He's not good for our state. He is a threat to the Texas miracle. And it says something that the governor of the state doesn't actually care about his constituents or the economy of the state. He only cares about his partisanship.
What were people's issues with the incumbent? Like that, like he because I was like, obviously, well, first of all, he had originally 4 opponents. Like that's not a great sign for an incumbent
Yeah.
for any office. And then he lost to a guy that pretty much had the whole state elected officials against him. Why was he so unpopular that that type of candidate even won?
I think it's a good question and it's valid. So Jim Wright was the incumbent who is still currently on the commission, at least until December. And he, is a fairly normal person, I think.
Well, that's not good. Can't do that anymore.
I know. And my campaign was going to characterize him as being corrupt and self dealing, which is a common complaint about the railroad commissioners. There's 3 commissioners. It's a 1,000-person agency with a $500 million budget. And the commissioners are seen as self dealing, corrupt, or self interested, whatever you want to say. That's a common theme. And so I was prepared to hit the incumbent with that. I think what happened was in a primary electorate, in the primary, you tend to have your most polarized voters. And so this guy, whipping up culture war, stuff appealed to them. And then I think another aspect of this is I do believe there's some division in the Republican Party now
Well,
between
clearly, yes.
sort of the old school ones that were what we used to call conscientious conservatives, your Reagan Bush Republicans, Yeah, listen, how badly we miss those people right now,
I know.
right?
The thing is,
So,
I think that like we also saw. I feel like the country saw this exact thing play out. Obviously, not with people were necessarily following this specific race with Jim Wright, but they were obviously following with John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. This was like another example of the old school Republican,
right,
um, conservative, really conservative, but not conservative enough for culture wars and purity politics, and certainly not for Trump. And that led to him being crushed in a runoff by
yeah,
someone who was impeached by his own party. And so I think that
impeachment, they boldly corrupt. Like
it
I was there for that impeachment. I took that vote along with the Republicans, right? And we saw laid out his corruption, bribery, misuse of office, all of that.
I think it's quite telling when you see the person who was the defense attorney endorse the other candidate in the race, as
Right.
we've seen with the defense attorney Kim Paxton endorsing James Talarico. I think
Yeah,
that it
100%.
shows, like, you would think, and this applies to your race, and this applies obviously to Kim Paxton's race and to Clan Tucker's race and all these other races, is that you would think that if not for the moral issues with like these candidates that primate successful incumbents, well, not successful, but like less less knowingly negative to the public. I think that yes, the corruption message is true, but I think that if someone's not actively like doesn't have a scandal, it's much harder to beat someone, especially in a red state like Texas or red-ish state. So I think that you certainly have an easier race to run now, I think. Much more I would say high pressure, I would say, because it's someone like Beau French, but I think more people would likely support you, I know. But because of this, I think that you would think that maybe at least they'd make a political decision like, oh, like if we nominate someone like Ken Paxton, this seat could really be a toss up, if not leaning towards the Democrat candidate. Same thing with um your race and same thing with other races that this happened. What if we just nominate the person that's the incumbent and they'll have a better shot? Now, I still think they would probably all Cornyn could have still lost, and all these people could have still lost with it.
Sure.
Yeah, like you and stuff like that. Especially given the Democratic leaning year it is, but it certainly would be a much safer option for them. It's just like I feel that the GOP has really like shifted towards like not even losing their like moral intelligence, but like also just their political. It's like this is just political suicide also in terms of a lot of these races. It's like
Yeah.
why would you even risk putting up a candidate? It's like because it's like we're used to, unfortunately, Republicans attacking Muslims in general, um, but
Right.
it's not as common that they outwardly say Jews also, and I think that that's alienates a lot of people. That might, unfortunately, there's because of situations that happened during the time after 9/11, there was a lot of culture that was created that Islamophobia was more accepted into society, unfortunately. Um, and so
Yeah.
that so I think people kind of accept that, unfortunately, more. But I think that obviously both comments were horrendous, and I think that the fact that he's like making people choose when he's leading a huge county in Texas, but like choose between choose between these two groups. It's just like the fact that he would think that that's a good idea to post. Like you can think that, and you're a horrendous person, but like posting it is just an additional stupid move.
Right, right, and from a position of prominence,
Yeah.
right? When you're the chairman of the Republican Party of the largest remaining, Republican county in the state, Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and it just got a lot of attention. Since then, I mean that the guy's a steady stream of this kind of material, though. I mean, he put out. I'll forward you the link to this. He put out a fundraising email, basically trying to connect me with the Bolsheviks that murdered the Romanov family, and he's got this AI picture of me in the room where the family was murdered, and
So
saying, I'm not much different from them. And I'm like, that was a horrendously anti-Semitic narrative in World
because
War II, right?
like you would think if you are a candidate that has this type of scandal history with hatred and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, then you might not want to remind people of that scandal if you're gonna win the right office in a year that looks like Texas might shift blue. You might not want to remind people that this happened, and then you're like putting out this very. I think like sometimes hatred can be like hidden dog whistles. I think most people will be like, so you're attacking a Jewish candidate using this very obvious
Right.
anti-Semitic thing, like, that's just so obvious to me. I
It's
feel like that's
great.
obvious to a lot of people. I know that I saw when I was looking for this interview that, one of the candidates who was running in the GOP primary, um, in this five-way primary endorsed you. Is that
Yeah.
that's I think that that's substantive. I think I last time I checked, I think it was, like, he had, like, 7% of the vote, so it's not, like, a huge portion, but, like, that's but in a state like Texas, that's if those voters go to you, mostly go to you, plus the work that you're doing to also get people that might not publicly endorse you, but will
Yeah.
still
No,
support you.
it's a really good point. The guy you're talking about, his name is Hawk Dunlap. His given name is Hawkins. But that was he, just like me, sees this race beyond the partisanship of it. He's the industry professional. So he and I are the ones with all the industry experience. Where I'm 25 years of industry experience, he has 30, and does well plugging out in the field for a living now. He's one of the famous oil well firefighter, sort of the daredevils that when a well or a field blows up, these guys go to put out that kind of fire. He was one of them, one of the Red Adair's boots and coots guys. So for us, there's a camaraderie and a kinship from having worked for decades in this industry, and that goes way beyond red team, blue team, right? But the thing about it is, how is it that the most qualified candidate on their side came in last in the primary? I mean,
Yeah.
why are they not putting forward their most qualified peoples? Because he didn't engage in the culture war stuff at
Is it
all.
I've really noticed this, and, like, obviously, Beau French took this to a extreme degree with his actually putting this in the poll, but, like, from what I've seen, there's been so much, like every Republican Party in every state seems to have really gone for the culture war, but, like, Texas really seems to be going for the cultural war.
Yeah.
I know when the day I came into Austin for the Dream for America, that same day in the Dallas airport, there was some issue, I guess, with like an issue with a foot washing station.
Oh yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't fly into Dallas because I'm like I don't want to deal with all that stuff. It's just like, why can't we just do things like focus on the issues? And when someone asked that question, because I've been asked that many times, like, why don't Republicans just focus on these issues? Like, these are people that are somewhat tuned out of politics, but like kind of more down the middle. And I said, well, because the problem is for a lot of certainly Texas Republicans, but Republicans in a lot of places, they know they can't win on their own policies because in a state like Texas, you can't say, um, I was blocked from doing the things I need to do because you guys have they've controlled Texas for 30 years without much, like, they have majorities. It's
Yeah.
not really much Democrats can do unless they look to, like, make bills better, but the Republicans don't have an incentive to necessarily, change bills because they know that they can pass it mostly on their own.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that it's like you can't say, "Oh, we're gonna fix things." Um, it's like, "Well, why haven't you?" Well, you've had
Exactly.
30
So
years.
yeah, y'all have,
I'm looking at a race in Florida, and for the governor's race, and it's like they've also controlled things for about 30 years, say on the statewide level. It's like, why can't you just fix it?
right.
You don't. Why do you need another term? You've had 30 years. I think it's time to. The thing is, if someone in their normal job was in there for 30 years and didn't get the job done, you wouldn't be like, "Can I get a raise and a promotion?" You'd be like, "You're fired."
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know why, like, I really do wish and, like, obviously we saw in the GOP primary, and hopefully this is resolved by November, but we did see, like, them getting rid of, like, trying to target ballots and trying to target voting stations, and honestly, we're seeing this on the presidential level. We just saw it yesterday. Honestly, I would say it was a surprise decision to me. The Supreme Court ruled that he can target mail-in ballots um, through his executive order. I don't know how much he can do in the short time we have before mail-in ballots start going out to people across the country, but it's not the ruling that it's certainly more than should have been allowed. I was wondering in terms of your policies that are gonna affect the job that you're doing, obviously data centers has been a major issue in Texas. A lot of Texas candidates have been running on it. Um, and I think that this is a issue that I think some Democrats across the country are struggling to come to the correct view on. But I think Texas Democrats statewide and elsewhere and across the state, the congressional seem to have it right dead on because it's in your guys' backyard. Like Abbott's been trying to make it the data center capital of the world, which is not a good thing. Um, and so my understanding is that you'd be working with someone like Clayton Tucker if you were to win on like working together to fight these data centers. So what exactly does the Texas Railroad Commissioner have under your tool belt to address the data center problem?
Well, it's a good question. The answer is it's not a direct connection really because the power for them is going to be Public Utility Commission. That's electrical generation and distribution. And although there might be an avenue to address these for water, because the Railroad Commission does deal with produced water, and there's billions of barrels of the produced waters. When I use that phrase, that means the water that comes out of the ground with the oil and gas when you're producing hydrocarbons, and then also the fluids that they use for fracking come back out with the flow also. So it's definitely chemical laden, noxious waste that we have a problem with. And so while I would not be regulating them directly, I have forwarded policy ideas about data centers where I think if we're going to have them, we need to manage them appropriately with resource management plans. And if they've got this big money to start up with, and they're billion-dollar corporations, right? Um, Make them provide their own electricity and water, and have them furnish us, right? Have them put extra power on the grid and have them clean up their own water. We've got this problem with produced water and not enough place to dispose of it, and the technology to clean it is not yet economically viable for the most severe cases. And so, um, why don't we have them operating off desal plants in their own, generation, whether they're using wind, solar, or gas fired, and then also while it's not the purview again of the Railroad Commission, I think the setback standard, which is the distance you have to be from a residential community, that needs to be significant distance. So where in other parts of the state, if you label it heavy industrial setbacks 1,500 feet, I actually think if I can work remote from my home, miles and miles away, why can't we just say if you're going to build these things, can't be closer than 2 miles to the nearest residential neighborhood? But I think it's funny that most people I talk to, whether they're for data centers or against, I think most people are just boldly against data centers.
Yeah.
For me, it's more like if the big money ends up, getting their way, which sadly often happens in United States politics, I think we just need to make sure that we are managing them uh, responsibly with the resources and protecting communities and stuff. I mean, people have debates about, jobs and AI and all the other things. I think from the position of the Railroad Commission, it has to be a conversation about resources. So that's kind of I published a position on it. I think it's popular enough that it looks to me like the governor basically copied my position and what
Well,
he put out. But this is funny because he says he wants to audit them. He's going to have an audit that will end after the election. So nobody thinks after giving them tax incentives and everything else to help them move in, nobody thinks he's going to actually do anything.
what's so interesting is that, like, I've seen Abbott, and then we just saw yesterday or 2 days ago, Ken Paxton put out a platform that copies Abbott's position almost word for word. Um, and it's like, okay, so since we all agree that data centers are bad, then we can convene a special
Special
legislative
session,
session and fix it. Is that what that means? If we all agree, then let's fix it, right? Like,
right?
I don't know,
So
like
if they wanted to do a real thing, that's what they would do. Call us back. I'm one of the legislators, so call us back to Austin. The governor has the sole ability and responsibility to call a special session of the legislature. We could go in there, and over the course of about a week or two, maybe not even that long, we could pass responsible regulations. And so, if he wanted to really do something about it, call us back.
and we know he knows how to do that because we saw him bring back the state legislature, um, to rig the congressional maps.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Session before that, he called multiple special sessions trying to pass his private school voucher.
yeah, and so it's just like he knows how to deal with for the issues he cares about.
100%.
Like, the school vouchers thing was something he launched a tirade against any person that voted against it. I don't think there's many of them still nominees
That
of their respective races, um, which I would say definitely shows his dominance in state races on the GOP side. Besides your race, where he couldn't get his not only not his chosen person, but like his like he couldn't even defeat the person that like he literally said was like dangerous for this job. So it's
right.
it's kind of odd that he was able to. I find it hard to believe that he's able to get all these like almost every single one of these people that supports opposes the school vouchers bill out of office. But for a statewide office with the scandals that like the real scandal that this guy has, if he really wanted him to lose or like he really cared about it, I think he would have figured out a way to make sure that he would have campaigned a lot more. He would have done a lot more to take him out, just like he did for all the people that voted against the school vouchers. And so I think that it's very clear that the issue is not with this GOP in Texas or across the country is not scandal. It's you you didn't vote with me. You weren't loyal. And
Right.
and so they don't care if you've said if you're a bigot. They don't care if you um caused several many different scandals where it led to you led to your wife divorcing you on biblical grounds. Like they don't care about the scandals that they claim to normally be against when Democrats might have engaged in some improper things across the country. But they care about it, but they do care about, "Oh, you voted against us on this." So
Exactly.
I was wondering, I'm sure that Bo French and the Texas Republican establishment will label you from everything under the book. We've obviously seen, um, uh, a lot of Democrats across the country be labeled socialist, communist, whatever it might be, especially since the rise of the DSA in, small pockets of the country. Um, 1, have you seen this attack already be launched against you? And second of all, how do you respond to when you get these weird attacks make that are obviously not true if someone reads your positions?
Yeah, it's a great because he does. He calls me Radical Rosenthal. I feel like saying, "Hey, man, my friends in the legislature call me Rowdy Rosenthal, and you don't want to know why, right?" Oh, but yeah, he calls me a radical and he calls me a communist, Marxist. I don't think those folks even know what that actually means. And yeah, at the risk of pissing off some of my Democrat friends, I'm more of a drill baby drill Democrat, and there may not be a lot of us, but I literally worked in the industry for decades. I make my money that way. I make payments on the house I'm sitting in with money I made in the oil field, and so it's another one of those things where we can enjoy all the good things as long as we manage it responsibly. So just I'm not here to put a bunch of new restrictions, but in Texas, we don't even enforce the regulations that we have. And if someone wants to say, I want to strangle the industry, I'm like, the only regulations that we have here are the ones passed by Republicans over the last 30 years. So if you all were that irresponsible with the way that you managed that, okay. But so I just, I try to strike a little bit more middle of the road tone and try to keep the subject matter on oil and gas and environmental issues. So this agency is also the one that protects the environment and cleans up those orphan wells and zombie wells that no one else has responsibility for, and you want that managed well. So whenever folks say stupid stuff like that, I say, look, I make my money in the industry. I'm not trying to cut down the industry that's provide my livelihood, and also for the people I represent now in Northwest Harris County. There's a lot of oil field workers out here and administrators and stuff.
Yeah.
We're close to the area that's called the Energy Corridor, where the administration offices for BP, ConocoPhillips, and some others are out here, and it's like he can say that if he wants to. I just poke fun at him. I say, if if you don't have any substance and you don't want to debate the actual issues for the job, then all you got left is calling me names. So good
Well,
luck with that.
has he agreed to a debate at some point between now and November 3rd?
We were both at a candidate forum. It was not a debate. It was a forum that was hosted by TIPRO, the Texas Independent Producers and Royalty Owners, and they were having their summer conference, and they invited us. They didn't have us on stage at the same time. We each got a turn to address the audience, for 10, 15 minutes, and then take questions for another 10 or 15 minutes. So I thought it went pretty well for me, but there was no place for us to be asked like contrasting questions at the same time. Uh, I would love something like that. I'm trying to encourage, some of especially the oil and gas folks who are going to be interested in this to host a forum. So I'll let you know if we have some news on that. We'll post on it. But right now,
Right.
Bo is avoiding
Well,
those
I think
audience are not just friendly to him.
I think that I'm sure Bo's hoping that the state that's the part of the state that's not in Tarrant County might not know, might have forgotten, might have never even heard about his comments in his poll, and certainly in a statewide debate that would certainly come up either through the moderator or through you saying it repeatedly. Because I think he through that type of comment and the fact that he didn't step down and he decided to run for higher office rather than like reflect on what even made him want to make something like that public.
No, right.
That
So I'm
I think
sorry.
that he certainly does not even have the temperament, regardless of
Right.
the experience, to be a statewide position.
So I think you're really tapping into something that I talk about a lot, and that is um, this is one of our opportunities to demonstrate that the politics of hate has pretty much run its course in this country. I think there are obviously some segment of society that revels in hate and division, but I think that they are a small minority, and I think people by and large, whether they lean right, lean left, most people are gathered around the middle somewhere, and they're just exhausted by this politics of hate and division and bigotry. And so this is a real opportunity to to demonstrate that. If this guy loses when he is not running a campaign based on the issues of the position at all, it's just it's a campaign of hate. And if he loses with a campaign of hate, a statewide election, there has not been a Democrat railroad commissioner in 34 years or something like that. I think it's fuel to say, all right, y'all, time for that crap is over because it's not going to work for you anymore. So let's tone it down and get back to the business at hand. And I can't tell you the number of people I run into that just wish government would stop being noisy, go back to doing the work that they hire us to do, and stop trying to make headlines all the time.
I think that that's something certainly I would love. The thing is that like I feel like one of the reasons why people like Joe Biden or other figures like him were popular in 2020, and there's other people that are running in different races across the country this year that have someone. It's like make politics boring again, but you don't. There's certain things you don't necessarily need
Please.
to hear about. Like the thing is, I don't want. The thing is, I know who Beau French is. I shouldn't, as a like yes, he's the nominee for statewide office, but like I know who he was like a year ago because I shouldn't know a county party chair that's not even in my state, that's across the country, but I know it because of what he's done. Like, I think I saw the clip, I think it was probably of Rachel Maddow doing a piece on it when it first
Yeah.
happened, and it's just like, "Oh, okay." Like, I would like to not like, I should unless you're like like, I will know people because I'm kind of obsessed with politics, like, I kind of know things that I probably don't need to know, but, like, I know people when I've talked about this race with people that when I was telling people I was interviewing, it's like, "He's running against a Beau French guy." I'm like, "How do you know? You barely know politics." He says, "Why isn't that the guy that did this?" I'm like, "Yeah." But the thing is, so it's like, that's like, I think that we like to go a lot of people would like to go back to the time when you didn't, like, know about, like, these, like, small folks who make national news on these, like, really problematic things. But I was wondering, you mentioned earlier that, like, obviously you are more of a down the middle type of Democrat and, like, you because of it being your livelihood, you are more of a drill baby drill, Democrat. I was wondering, obviously you didn't have a primary challenger during the primary, but, what like, when Democrats that disagree with you or whatever it might be, have issues with some of your positions or whatever it might be, when they come up to you at a rally or whatever it might be, what do you say to them? Because I obviously, like, I don't think a far left candidate can win in a state like Texas statewide. I just don't think that's really possible, but at least not a generic far left Democrat. But like, what do you say to them to be like to like assuage their concerns like that?
It's a really good question, and it's important because there's quite a spread, of thought. There's a spread of philosophical thought among Democrats, right? We're not all the same, and and different people see things different ways, and I totally appreciate that. And there's some who think that we should be moving away from fossil fuels, and the truth is, I believe there's already a global shift underway, and we should be, promoting that. I think we're talking about not just winning a race in Texas. I think this is a real opportunity to make a dent in environmental policy in our country. So when Texas leads the country both in oil and gas energy production and in wind production, we also are leading the country in environmental pollution problems. And so, while I'm not going to run around the state saying, yeah, we need to shut down the industry, what we need to do is operate responsibly and clean up those messes. And so, if you want to have a person who's in the role who will actively, aggressively work to increase the funding that's given for cleaning up these environmental messes that exist all over our state, I'm the guy. Like I'm the best chance at that. So I think that there's conversations to be had with environmentalists and folks that want to shift our energy infrastructure and energy outlook. In Texas, we run very close to the limits of our capacity, especially when it freezes here in this state. And so I subscribe kind of a all of the above energy approach right now. And if you want to get away from, let's say, fossil fuels, there you can't just turn a switch and have that go off because half the energy in the state is generated by burning natural gas right now. So until you have alternates like geothermal, hydrogen, some people are promoting nuclear, and water and wind and solar. Like we should have an energy portfolio in the state because we have the infrastructure and the know-how to do it all. So um, let's see if we could take the first step first to just get someone who's responsible about these things
I think that
elected.
I think that before people really have a discussion about, like, what type of energy, I think making sure that the the energy state like, the capital regarding energy is Texas, like you said at the beginning, like, making sure that the grid actually like, people's lights actually stay on for, like, at least a year, a full year without going down. Let's focus on getting that figured out first before we move to all these other things. So I think that obviously we need to discuss policy also, like in terms of that position, but like also we have to make sure that the basic operations where just like people don't die.
Right.
The thing is, we can talk about the long term effects of fossil fuels and talk about the long term effects of nuclear and all these other types of energy and the pros and cons of all of those. But like, if people like, I don't necessarily care what energy. I just lost my family member because they died because the grid keeps going down. Like this is not. We can't. Like I would like. I know someone in Texas that like people worry that like every year they might lose someone just because the grid goes down. Who knows if they're gonna survive it? Like it stays before it can be it's up again and you have
Yeah. Sometimes.
people like Ted Cruz that are in a different state. I personally view that maybe just quarantine Ted Cruz during the winter months because it seems like whenever he leaves, that's I don't know. It seems whenever he leaves, that's when some sort of catastrophe happens. So maybe just keep him in the state, actually, or at least maybe to remove him from office, and then he can go wherever he wants. But while he is
Exactly. Yeah, during that winter freeze when he famously flew to Cancun, I drove around my district helping people shut the water off at their houses because everyone's pipes were breaking and folks were, having tons of damage to their homes and stuff. So if
yeah,
if you have sought out a job to represent, people, whether it's the city, the state, your county. I
yeah.
think you have an obligation and responsibility to actually stay and work for them, especially when it gets tough, right?
I think
So,
that I think that like the fact that your opponent, his only experience is being a county GOP chair, like that, like yes, a major county, but still, like that's not experience for a non-political position, if your only job is if your only job in terms of elected office or any sort of public office is being a political chair, when you at and not only that, you're not even a chair that people like. They try to get you to go.
I know, right?
It was not like this happened like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This happened like in the immediate precursor of him running for a statewide office. It was like, and the thing is, normally people don't necessarily run for high office right when they're in the middle of a scandal. Um, but I sincerely hope that people like Bo, people like Ken Paxton, people like, and of course people like Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and Nate Sheets and all these people that are running for all these different offices. Don Huffins, God, that guy. I don't. That's a whole nother race.
Have you
Uh,
interviewed Sarah Eckhart? It is another race, but
I
Don Hufford is running for
want to.
comptroller. This is
That
the
is
guy that bought the Epstein Ranch, right, Don?
right. Talk to her. It's like even if you have good intentions with like the purchasing of a property, why even like it just at the very best it's bad optics. To like, why would you even want to have yourself associated with anyway like with the land that's owned by a known and convicted pedophile? It just seems very odd, and I don't know what his intentions are. But it it the fact that he kind of hid it and like kind of doesn't talk about much shows that he's not the best intentions. Now, I'm not saying that he's doing anything untoward, but like it's certainly like it's just weird. It's a weird thing to purchase.
Yeah,
Uh, and again, this is just like I don't know why these people. And then like of course he was endorsed by Trump, which adds more suspicion to the whole thing, given the whole Epstein scandal with Trump. It just seems like, oh, so the people that were connected through some direction, if just like friends, all endorsing each other, that's a little odd. Um, it's a little odd, but there's so many weird races in Texas with some really weird candidates on the GOP side. But like you have people like you have people like Sarah Eckhart, you have people like Talarico, you have people like Hannah Joseph, all these Clayton Tucker, all these amazing candidates, Vicky Goodwin, and then you have the GOP candidates. It's like, what are you doing? Like, it's. I think that, in really, I've not seen any other races for all these statewide offices in other states where like the contrast is like so evidently clear. It's like, and like not just even on political things, but just like on like moral like
yeah,
types of people. Like you have a guy who um you have Greg Abbott who all of his corruption regarding data centers regarding his attacks on like THC and all these other issues. And Dan Patrick, again, same issues. Um, I don't know as much about Nate Sheets, but I know that he's part of this more corrupt partisan machine. And obviously, what we were discussing with your opponent, and of course, the guy who bought the Epstein Ranch, and all these like, and then to top it all off, Ken Paxton, who seems to have lived through almost every scandal in the book up to this point. Like, how bad? Like when the Republican state legislature, which I would say is pretty partisan, is like, we're gonna impeach you, knowing that you're up for re-election, and and everyone kind of knew that he was gonna run for Senate. Like he had not really kept it a secret that he was probably gonna challenge Cornyn this year. Um, and it's like, we're gonna actually impeach you. Like that's not usually like it's hard to get impeached by your own political party. Um,
right.
especially since I'm sure Greg Abbott did not want that, and like leftists do not want that. So I think that that's certainly like it's not a good look. So I don't know what they're doing. As Trump said one point, um, obviously in his very racist way, but in this context, they're not sending their best people, as Trump once said. Obviously, he was
Right.
referring to unfortunately Mexicans and immigrants. I think that it's the GOP now, and they're not sending their best. They really, it's like it's like they'd have a better chance if they had not like primaried their less scandal plagued in terms of outward scandal candidates, but they are where they are. And I think that when Texan voters vote in November, assuming that they have full ability to vote without any hindrance or issues, either from the federal side or from the statewide side, that when all of you guys win, hopefully they'll learn and they might return to like some more like, oh, let's actually work with everyone. Let's work with the Democrats now. Because
Yeah.
frankly, they might not have any choice because they'll be in charge, hopefully. So
Well,
that's,
I do hope that this election is an opportunity to re-normalize
yeah.
politics, right? Like we were just talking about earlier, when the politics of division and hate fails, you need to do something else or you will continue to fail.
So I do hope that that happens. I hope that candidates, candidates like Bo, all these other candidates lose, and I hope that candidates like you guys do win. I was wondering, if people want to get involved, donate, volunteer, whatever it might be, look at your policy place. Where should they go?
They should go to johnrosenthaltx.com. And my name is JON. So it's johnrosenthaltx.com. You can donate. I have quite a bit of, I know it's a surprise, but I've got what I think are thoughtful, well considered policy proposals on the website. A lot of good information there. And then, if you want to contact me, it's pretty easy to get a hold of me. So send me a message either through social media or website. One of the hallmarks of my entire political career as a candidate, as a state rep, and all that stuff is I'm pretty easy to reach. So for folks that have questions, reach out. And if you're in Texas or out, the key to this race, I believe, is going to be spreading information. So the more the people know, the better. The more they know about this office. For Railroad Commission, should actually be called Oil and Gas Commission. And if they know about my credentials and my opponent's stuff, I think it's hopefully an easy choice for the majority of Texans.
I hope so too. I think that, as I said before, like obviously an opponent, a potential opponent in the GOP primary did endorse you, and I think that as we get closer and those tend, we see more usually those cross party endorsements usually when we get closer to the actual election. So I'm sure you'll see more endorsements like that. Um, and I'm sure that even if you don't see a lot of public ones, you'll see a lot of voters who don't have to worry about being primaried out of office for supporting the Democratic candidate. Um,
Right.
that will vote for you. Um, yeah, so I wish you the best of luck, and obviously, we'll stay in touch.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye now.
Bye. So that was John Rosenthal. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I will be interviewing. I had 3 interviews tomorrow. 3. So I'm gonna be interviewing Florida's 11th Democratic nominee. His name is Jimmy Pericola. And then I'm gonna be interviewing former Congressman Joe Walsh. Also tomorrow that'll be at 1:00. The Pericola interview will be happening at 11:00. And I'm interviewing Gen Z well-known political commentator Luke Beasley at 4:00. So I hope you join and share with your friends. Those are gonna be very big interviews. And then on Friday, I have another 2 interviews. So I have 5 more interviews this week. Then obviously they're not all going to get released um, this week, but you can watch them live. I'm going to be interviewing Joel Rubin, who is the 2020 Jewish Outreach Director for Bernie Sanders. I'll be interviewing him at 10 a.m. on Friday. And then I'm going to be interviewing Illinois State Rep and Speaker Tempore Kim Buckner on Friday at 12 p.m. So I hope you join me for all 5 of those interviews live, and hope you subscribe. And if you would like to support the Substack further than beyond a free subscription, the $12 a month or $100 a year, the $100 a year will save you 30%. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and